not to scream into the mic. Okay, so I was going to say that before I was so rudely interrupted by my own technical difficulties, I was going to mention that the schedule for the stream this week, this streaming schedule is up. I will go grab the link directly to it. It is here. Hold on. I say that. Actually got quite a bit of stuff going on this week. Streaming schedule. Let's plop that in there. There we go. So this today, where I'll go over my game. That'll be today. Tomorrow, Carl Rodriguez of the GMologist podcast will be coming on to sell me on Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds, I'll get into it more tomorrow, but it's something that I own the book. I just haven't really had a chance to get into it. I suppose I could say that about so many things that I own it, haven't had a chance to really get into it. So I'm looking forward to that because I've heard a lot of good things, great things about Savage Worlds, but just haven't gotten around to actually getting into it. And I kind of would like to know what the sort of marquee, what are the people who love Savage Worlds love about Savage Worlds? How would they sell it? And then so that's Wednesday. Then on Thursday, one of the guys from the creators of gosh, now I'm spacing out on the names. I always keep calling it Secret of the Norns, but it's not. It's I should probably go to my own blog. Or my own forum. I can say Fate of the Norns. The publisher name Pendlehaven. His name is Andrew. I met him at PAX Unplugged. We kind of exchanged info. I've been playing sort of email tag for a little bit, but I finally nailed him down. So he's coming on Thursday to talk about Fate of the Norns and other stuff. Fate of the Norns is really cool system. Has some really neat ways it has a really interesting way of adjudicating things. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. It uses runes, things, just very cool. And then Friday, the roundup. So that's the week. That is the week on the stream. Brought to you by Sunoco. No, it's not brought to you by Sunoco. So that's that. So let's get down to brass tacks. So I had my game last Wednesday. I guess we've been playing on Wednesdays now. Started off on Mondays and it's been kind of bouncing around the week. We played on Wednesdays. I will pull up. I don't really have anything to show on my master kind of mind map, but I guess I can add some stuff to it. So let me go ahead and get that up. But if we recall from the session before, they had gone champion versus champion in against the Goblins in the Caves of Chaos, and they had succeeded. They won the champion versus champion battle. They weren't able. Well, they were able to get some coin out of it. They actually haven't counted the coin yet, which was interesting. They kind of took it and went. But they didn't actually count the coin, so I'll have to roll. I haven't even rolled. I don't forget how much they say it's supposed to be in there. I will have to roll it up. I will roll it up to just determine that part of it. And they had, I believe it was like 7 or 8 of the female goblins decided to go with them. And I mentioned that I had forgotten to roll for the goblin males, but I think it's actually going to work out really well. And I will get into it shortly, what's going to happen with some of the goblin males. So they ended up going, some of the females decided to go with them. I forgot to roll for the males, but I think that's going to turn out well. There was one actually, I've just called it kind of an infant or sort of toddler goblin. But I think I'm going to get in, I think I'm going to play it more sort of fairy tale-like. So I'm wondering if it's going to be kind of a human baby. This baby is being goblinized. No one's taken a really close look at it. So we've got freedom still there to kind of do some interesting things with it, because no one's really gone and examined this toddler thing, just that it's kind of been tagging along. And they went. So they left there, they got out there, we made it out, and now they spent some time discussing what their next steps were going to be. Now, I do encourage them to do this in between games, but it doesn't always work out that way. Everyone's got difficult schedules, and sometimes the game just comes up on us. I know certainly sometimes it seems to come up on me. Before you know it. I'm just going to pull this up. I'm just going to add some stuff in here as we're going. Let's see. According to the Goblins. So they so they left, and they were just considering what to do. They had some thoughts about going back in for more, some thoughts about camping out, but they did recognize, or I don't know if recognize is the right word. They were sort of counting their wins and losses. Okay, they had defeated some goblins. They have these goblins who are now with them, but these goblins now they could arm them. I mentioned that these were goblins who were in the caves were not immediate combatants. They were at the time sort of civilian goblins. That doesn't mean that they couldn't outfit them, give them some spears and whatever, and these goblins could fight. They could, but at the time, these were not ones who were on duty, I guess. They were just kind of, they just happened to be there, but they when our team sort of pitched them like, hey, we beat Bonebreaker, and you should follow us. Now these happen to heed that particular call. Now, if we recall, this whole thing with the Caves of Chaos is kind of Aelirth Stern. I've been kind of building up. It's this sort of chaos. It's been sort of pulling things in, and is sort of instilling them a kind of survival of the fittest, or maybe the fittest, the strongest, the ones who dominate the most, kind of rise to the top of this ladder. What they're calling the process. They're rising up the process. So when Bonebreaker's champion lost, and by extension Bonebreaker lost, someone thought, okay, well, there's somebody new here, and if you're not the strongest, the next thing you want to do is you want to attach yourself to the strongest. That is how Bonebreaker rose to be the head of the goblins. This is how these other goblins now looked at the party. Okay, you guys are going to take the spot. But there's but something that I don't think they fully grip. Maybe they're getting it a little bit, but maybe not too much. Is that part of that whole thing is, well, you are now sort of seen as a rising power in the process, but part of that is inherent is that is so you're going to lead us up the process, lead us up this ladder from the lowest rung to the inner circle of the cultists or the priests and whatever, that the court of decay that is kind of running this whole thing, right? So you're gonna lead us up, right? You are on the rise, but the party now is backed away. So I'm going to have some fun playing with that. Now, the pull of the stone is lesser when you get out. So I mentioned this with the goblins they captured. It's not fully gone, but it goes from some intense to sort of lower intensity, but it's still there. And there's still this idea of you're supposed to be kind of leading us on. We thought that your sales pitch was follow us. We're the stronger in the process, not follow us, and we're just going to go walk away somewhere. Oh, we're now going to go to town and go on another adventure. Like, that's not how they think. So there's going to be some interesting things as they have to deal with this. And they just might kill the goblins. I mean, that's something they thought about, because they got these goblins in tow, and they're like, what do we do with them? And they're thinking, like, we could just kill them. They did an interesting thing was, a couple of things happened. So I guess I'll just go through. They decided to go back to town because they thought, well, we're down a torchbearer. We're down our magic user. We'd really like to have another magic user. We enjoyed having their powers at our behest. One of the characters does have a spell casting potential. He can learn spells, and the spellcaster did have sleep, and now the player has that guy's book, so he can take steps to try to learn sleep. Take a little downtime, but they're like, we really liked it. And they had a couple of guys that they left behind who weren't fully healed. They only wanted to take folks who were fully healed with them when they left on this particular adventure or this episode. So they thought, we can go back to town. We can get our guys. We had 2 more guys that we can get, so we can kind of get up to full strength or even fuller strength. Maybe hire some more folks. Try to see if we can find another kind of magic user in town. So that's what they decided to do. So they took the road that they had found that went across forded the river and kind of went into the hills and sort of cut through some dwarven ruins. The dwarf in the party, and really the party in general, is still interested in the ruins, but it's not their primary purpose right now. So they've put that aside, and they keep talking about, we're going to come back to it, but not yet. Hey, that's cool. I mean, I appreciate they've got focus. They're kind of focused on the caves right now. And if we recall, there was this, I don't know, a subplot, or the caves are there and that's happening. But what got the party interested and invested in the caves was that they had captured the leader of the wolflings, these lycanthropes who had some dealings with the party. And parties had different ideas of what to do with this leader, but their first instinct was, well, we should rescue the leader. And then they've been they're very much getting into kind of the political sort of game. Is they thought, well, we'll rescue the leader and we'll be able to reunite him with these wolflings, and we'll kind of gain a lot of cred with the wolfling people. But then when they got into a fight with some wolflings who were getting rowdy because it was near the full moon. They killed one. They took its body back, and they got some love from the local lord, the Viscount, and the people, and they'd been on the outs with the people before. So the fact that they got some love from them, then that was kind of that's also been percolating in their minds. I know that their last thoughts were, well, we want to get the goblin, we want to get the wolfling chief, basically. But we don't know whether we're going to, and decided whether we're going to take him to his people or bring him to the Viscount. And either, it's kind of like, which faction do we want to please? Well, we take him to his people, that's great. But maybe they feel like the wolflings are kind of limited. I don't know, but they're also looking at, wow, if we just brought one body back to the Viscount and we got a lot of love and we got an audience and we felt like big players, imagine if we were able to capture the chief and bring him back. Like, I think they've got that in their minds. But that was their initial thought process. Now, they haven't really talked about the chief lately, and there was some concern with them, which I've latched onto, that there was kind of a time limit, because they're like, this guy's been there. We should probably try to get there sooner rather than later. And I thought, that's a good idea. And I kind of had this really cool idea. If we go back to remember the Ill-Earth Stone comes from the, what's his name? Stephen R. Donaldson, I think, stories. And in the, was it Thomas Covenant? The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. And I think in that story, it's been forever since I read it, so it's really just my recollections mixed with whatever else. But there were some more powerful, more sort of powerful antagonists that were given sort of bits of the stone. And I'm thinking that, becoming more sort of avatars for the evil guy who's kind of like Morgoth in the Lord of the Rings Legendarium, where the absolute evil guy is kind of trapped behind something. He's like, the world has trapped him in. He can't kind of get in directly. He can't really get out, but he has his servants. So like a stronger servant, maybe the Sauron to a Morgoth, or the Witch King to a Sauron kind of thing. So he had some people, and I'm thinking that's what the Court of Decay, that's what those guys are going to do with the wolf, the wolf chief. Is they're gonna really make him one of their powerful figures. So I feel like in my head I have this really cool thing of when some of these armies or people start to come out of there, if they don't kind of stop it in time, this lycanthrope, this chief wolfling will be at the head of it. So they're kind of it's gonna make sort of this lieutenant if they don't get to it in a certain amount of time. I'm just gonna roll dice to see kind of how far along they have in kind of the breaking and remaking of that. Oops, I should probably move that down. That's going to happen. In the interim, they haven't really talked about it much. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, the timely, that makes sense. Things are in motion, but they kind of I don't know if let it slip, just not in the front of their attention. They've been more preoccupied with the practical matters at hand. So they're deciding again on those practical matters, not to press the caves. I think I mentioned in the last stream about this, that I feel like and this is not even just as a GM, this is what they should have done, right? It's just as kind of like an observer of the scene. I felt like they had the advantage to kind of press when they won that fight. They could have really took it to them and kind of finished them off, but they didn't. And I haven't decided exactly what's going to happen yet, because they didn't, but they didn't. Frederick Org says, I've not fed them to the demon yet. No, nobody's been fed to the demon yet. The thing is, it's we play once a week. We only don't get to play for that long. So time in the game actually goes quite slowly. Hasn't actually been all that long. No dragon has been encountered yet, Frederick. No dragon has hit yet. They've seen a rock. They saw a rock, but that they kind of dealt with. And there was a wyvern that showed up a while back that was someone's pet, but they haven't really delved into whose pet. There was one of the religious order, kind of one of their chiefs had a wyvern pet. They didn't have a chance to really figure anything else about that. They haven't really run into anything else. Well, there was that gargoyle. Those are the only flying things that they've seen so far. But they haven't encountered any dragons. I think the I mean, kind of the ogre and the hill giant are probably the strongest things that they've. I mean, I guess the lycanthropes are pretty strong on their own right, and that that chief would have been pretty strong, but they were on good terms with them really most of the time that they ran into them. Oh well, the elemental. There was that elemental that's in that withered wood, but they didn't mess with that. And the toad. Yeah, they haven't run anything super. Send in the friar drake. Well, here's the interesting thing. So what happens is that the party ends up, they follow the road, they come out, and they've been thinking about, okay, we're going to go back to town and we're going to get it. And they kind of forgot, and I actually forgot that they had these goblins in tow. So they come out and they end up coming out of the hills into the more or less kind of settled area. Would be kind of the heart, somewhat the heart of the breadbasket of this viscounty or county. You get some kind of open pasture land, and there's some kind of homestead farms. They're seeing, they got some homestead farms. They don't know exactly where they are in terms of, there are basically two towns that bookend this area. One is Quarry Bridge, and then the other one is Nobbs Hill. One Nobbs Hill to the north, Quarry Bridge to the south. They know that they're in between them somewhere, more or less halfway. They don't know exactly where, and they know the road is kind of somewhere ahead of them, but it was getting dark. So they decide to knock on one of these, or visit one of these farmsteads, see if they could get lodgings and maybe get some food. So they show up, and I roll some dice, and the reaction is pretty good. And they're armed, and these are just some farmers that don't have anything. So the farmers kind of let them in, and then as they're coming in, they're talking to the farmers. I just dawned on me, it's like, oh yeah, you've got these, you got eight goblins with a little goblin baby. So it's funny, they're in there talking for a few minutes and getting kind of settled, and I think they were getting some water and this or that. They hear this knock on the door, and then the farmer opens the door and is terrified and kind of horrified by these goblins showing up with some goblin baby, and then the party quickly goes, oh, they're with us. I had them have a barn. I don't even know if really medieval farmers had barns, but I gave this farmer and that kind of an outbuilding of sorts. So I was like, oh, and he was like, you can all stay in the outbuilding, and they were with you, like, there's like 5 of them armed. These farmers don't have anything, but they just kind of take them as their words, like, oh, okay, yeah, you can keep them out there. They can stay out there, and you can stay out there with them when you go to sleep. And we'll try not to be too frightened. The party did then ask, which I thought was important and kind of smart of their point, because I really hadn't talked about it much, is kind of how it dawned on them that they have these creatures with them, and how are these creatures seen in the world, basically. It's, okay, we have these goblins, and up until now they've just been kind of going on your standard sort of fantasy trope goblins, but they asked the question, and it's something that I probably should have covered with them. I didn't. I was just kind of playing off of where we're going, sort of Arthurian fairy sort of thing of, well, how are goblins perceived in the world? When these people are going to see these goblins, how do they think? And I referred them, say, well, in fairy tales, when you think of, and I don't know if this is how it really is, but I said, elves are the kind of creatures in the stories who are enchanting you, and you go on a feast and you kind of fall in love with them, but you wake up and it's 100 years later because you spent too long with them, that kind of thing. Goblins are what people call goblins are kind of mischief makers. They're sort of doing kind of dirty tricks, and the ones that will swap out your baby for doppelgangers and kind of all that stuff. That's kind of goblins. So that's kind of how they're perceived. And they think, okay, good. So that worked. Nothing says, nice save. Good to turn the fact that you forgot about the goblins into a fun moment. Yeah, I mean, you can. Yes, I like to do that. It's like, what, we all forgot about them, including you guys who didn't mention them. So yeah, they were there, and it did turn into a fun moment there. But the other thing is I'd forgotten about, which I'm bringing in after the fact, is that I'd forgotten again about, well, I had determined, and we talked about, oh yeah, some of the goblin males, maybe some of their mates, partners, whatever, family units are going to say, like, yeah, our wives went off there and we better follow them. They've gone, so I guess we're going to go. And now I've decided, well, they're trailing behind, but I was thinking I didn't have them do any scenes of catching up to the party in this session. So that's going to come up later, but it's going to be fun because I'm going to be able to bring more of these consequences home to roost. So they got to talk to these farmers. Kind of, they tried to gauge a little bit. The parties are my party. The players are very keen on discovering things about the world, which I love. The only time sometimes I have to kind of slow them down is I just try to, I try to impress upon them that limits to what different people know. You're asking, to say to them, hey, look, you're asking great questions, but this is a farmer. He doesn't know the inner workings of the thing. So they asked him kind of about, they gave him a gold coin. I was like, ooh, gold. It's even one of the other party members was like, I don't know if you should be showing them that kind of wealth. Since we're going to sleep here, maybe that might slit our throats in our sleep or something. But then that had the farmers then brought up like, I haven't seen a gold coin since the old Viscount died, and so they got to talk a little bit about that and sort of get more about, well, how do people feel about the current Viscount? And that's not particularly hidden, but basically they don't like him. But the farmers weren't just saying, we hate him. But I just sort of said, well, they don't see anything really not nice about the current Viscount, but you can tell by the way they're referring to the Viscount's father that they clearly favored the father a lot more. Not that the father was amazing, but he was kind of good, salt of the earth, whatever. Seemed to be a good, solid ruler, lord, whereas this lord, by comparison in particular, is just even relative to the rest of these leaders, is just not up to par. But they just try to be very subtle and sneaky about it. Brian Smith says the male goblins are on a quest to free their families from the clutches of the PCs. Potentially. They're definitely coming. I think they're still under the impression. So here's what's going to happen with that. Really not much else happened. So let me just get to the end of the actual session, because really not much else happened. So they asked what the farmers' names are, and I generated some names. I said, yeah, these are the names of the farmer and his wife. And they don't have any kids. And they're just kind of working their farm. And, they ask him, like, well, what do you know about this path? Because they just came off this sort of ancient road, or ancient by their standards road, that came out of the woods basically in between their property, or I don't know, property in quotes, the land that they deal with, their sort of plot that they are working, and then the kind of neighbors and the family say, like, they made the farmers say, like, we don't talk about that, we don't go there, we don't look at it, like we for our own health, we leave that alone. We don't go looking out at what may skulk in and out of that thing in the day or the night. We just hope and pray that we don't look at it, whatever it is happening over there, they're not looking at us. So, we don't know anything. We don't want to know anything, kind of thing. And then in the morning, the party leaves, and then they were debating now what to do in terms of, now they're going to be approaching the town, what to do with these goblins, and kind of how to figure that out, and whether they were going to kill the goblins or do whatever. So I kind of let them, we kind of just had the session there. So it's a nice social interaction with the farmers, them asking questions. Some of them they were answering. I tried to have them answer with the knowledge that they had available. Other ones was like, they don't know. They don't, I'm glad I want to say to them, or I do say to them, like, these are great questions you're asking. Just got to keep in mind who you're asking them of. Some people don't know. Like these guys, they just don't know this stuff. Other people might know, but you might need to sweeten things a little bit if you want to get them to talk. And then, of course, other ones, depending on who you are and what's happening, may not want to tell you. So there's some different things going on. What am I going to call? I'm going to call this symbolic. I don't know why I'm just talking about something in audio form. It's going to make no sense, but I was just writing a note for Bonebreaker that he was defeated in symbolic combat by the party. So that's where we left the session. Now, to the goblin males. So yes, some number, I haven't rolled it up yet, some number of goblin males have been shadowing the party, trying to catch up. Not even really with evil intent towards the party, but they're in the thinking of the process. So part of the process is you're kind of sowing your chaotic evil oats as you go. So they're going to come across those farmers. The party hasn't been trying to conceal their trail. They're moving there. It's a fairly large group. It's not going to be that hard to determine where they've gone. And so at some distance behind and some time behind, the male goblins are going to get to that farm, and they're going to kill, slaughter, and destroy that farm. I'm not sure what they're going to think the party did, or whether they feel like the party just, whatever the party, but they're going to go and burn it up. And I kind of have in my mind, and obviously it'll depend on what the party does, but this, if the party, at one point the party's just kind of checking things out, I just have this image in my mind of them looking looking back. They're getting on the road, and they're sort of they've moved some distance, and they kind of look back. Oh, what a beautiful morning! And oh, back there you see just in the distance, just just barely small on the horizon, but there's that place where you that farm city where you spent the night, and it's on fire, and there's black billowing smoke clouds right, coming from it. And then just curious to see what they think, what they think about that. And then having these goblins come up, wiping blood off their weapons, or maybe not even, maybe just exulting in the bloodletting, giving some little briarks and just kind of catching up to the party. It's like, hey, look at them like, hey, we did good, right, boss? just what we should have done, right? The process kind of thing. That's sort of the moment I have in my brain. I don't know if that'll end up happening. Who knows what'll end up happening? I certainly, at the party, then go and decide to try to kill the goblin females. That will definitely be super interesting, and it's obviously going to be interesting if they're going to try to get them into town, or they're going to try to have them stay somewhere out of sight. Their hirelings aren't super keen on the goblins. They're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen, but this is not something that they're really comfortable with. I mean, these are, in terms of this world, they're kind of otherworldly creatures, otherworldly in a kind of a real way. So they don't really know what to make of it. They're kind of waiting to see. So there's a lot of kind of things going on. Of course, the town's not going to be happy if they're coming up with a bunch of goblins, if they're not in chains. I suppose they had them in chains or something that might make it better. But that has its own issues, because you go to the town in chains, that's great, but then you're going to be expected to turn them over to the Viscount, not, oh, these are our personal chattel. Like, that's not really going to work. So, we'll see what happens there. Brian Smith says, could have a single survivor go racing up the party all bloodied and terrified. You need to show the party what happened behind them. Maybe. I'm thinking, that's the nice thing, right, is I don't feel like I need to show the party what happened, because the party or the finding out of what happened will happen. That'll happen. So Brian Smith, this is what I envision. If the party, they never look back, or I never get that chance to explore that moment with them, they just head back to town. At some point, those goblins are going to catch up to them. Now, I'll roll dice. I'll see what they do. Maybe they're going to hustle. Maybe I'll see how long it takes for the goblins to do their work. Maybe they'll decide to go burn some other farms and get kind of distracted, get in the sort of frenzy of spreading chaos. So if the party never looks back, and Brian Smith says, my party would just never look back, totally fair. If they don't, word's going to get to there. Word's going to get to them, and it might. And the best thing about that is when that tends to happen, you can have fun with, what's the timing of, say, the party's at the gates, and they've been spending some amount of time trying to convince the guards. Again, I don't have no idea what the circumstances are going to be, but let's just say that they've been spending some time at the gates, trying to convince the guards that, hey, we got these goblins. They're ours. They're bound to us. I don't know. Whatever it is, their spiel is going to be that, hey, we're bringing these in, and it's all good, and no need to do anything. And then you could have somebody run up there, someone from another farm, somebody who's happened to be on the road, somebody either running up, or the goblins running up themselves. Well, that could be a funny moment too, right? The party is like, look, these goblins are cool. They're with us. They don't mean any harm. And then you can see these goblins running up the road to join the party, and they're all like blood spattered, and their spears are all bloodied. Maybe they got some grisly trophies, and then someone behind them's running up like, oh God, the farmstead's burning down, whatever. And all this can happen at once. You can have a lot of fun with just ramping up this kind of moment. It's just waiting there. I mean, it's just a powder keg, right? It's just, who knows when it'll blow up? The fuse has been lit. Who knows when it's going to blow up? But whenever it does, it's going to be fun in different ways. It will be fun if the party gets all the way back to their home, and they're like, oh my gosh, we made it, and the goblins can hang out here. We're all good. And then there's a commotion outside, and then that stuff's happening, or goblins are at the gates, or whatever. I mean, there's really no bad moment for this reveal to happen. It's a matter of when. It's just, well, this thing's going to blow up. When's it going to blow up? And every permutation of when it could happen is going to be fun for different moments. So I don't need to kind of force they need to know now, because if it waits, it's just going to be delicious. It's going to be a really fun for me. I'm sure it'll be difficult for them. It'll be fun for me and interesting for them, regardless of when it happens. So I don't need to push a particular moment at this point because, yeah, exactly. Right. So they hand the party some heads, exactly, which would be great because everyone will recognize who those heads belong to because everyone's local here. Like, oh my gosh, that's so and so and so and so. Like it would, yes, they could. There is no end to the amount of fun that will be had when this thing comes up. And then, of course, the party is I don't know, in a tough spot. Again, it depends what happens. They're not, obviously they're not going to be like, oh, good, we burned up those farmers. But if they've got these goblin females with them who think that they're on the process, that this is all part of the process. And if they turn around and kill the goblin males, they're going to turn on them during that combat because it's not, the goblin males are doing, God's work kind of thing. They're doing what they need to do. The party's kind of letting them down. So there's I don't want to say some delicacy, but of course, and the other thing is if all this stuff, if all this thing comes to blows, as the powder keg explodes in full view of the town, I mean, they've been going on this roller coaster of, hey, we're here and we're kind of at a mid-level with the town. We did some good. Then Bogwig got our brought our reputation way low. Oh, look, we killed that wolf person, kind of brought our reputation back up some, at least to a kind of a momentary high. Bogwig has been eating away at it kind of since they were gone. But maybe we'll say they're back to maybe mid-level, maybe a little bit below mid-level because it hasn't been so much time and they did just do a good thing. And Bogwig sent out his own gang to get some wolf scalps, so to speak. I haven't rolled dice to see how successful they were, so that will, depending on how that turns out, maybe they'll be lower, or if his team had a hard time and kind of came up short, then maybe that'll make the party look kind of better by comparison. If they come back empty-handed or they come back wounded and the party were able to do it, then it's going to make the party look good, right? Bogwig's best guys couldn't do it, but these guys could. Hey, they must be better than we think. Maybe Bogwig's not always crack up to be, so on and so forth. But then if they have the full thing with like, oh, we've got goblins who are killing local people, and they're allied with us, and what are we doing? It's gonna put them in a bad spot. I mean, it's gonna give Bogwig like a super opening to just go for the jugular on their social thing, and the party's gonna have a really hard time doing it. They may lose. Basically, they may be just completely on the outs in this town for now. It could be, exiled, so to speak, to the wilderness. Let's see. Brian Smith says they're gonna have to kill some helpless goblins, females / kids. I mean, they might, and they might be forced to because those goblin females / kids might just go after them. Yeah, I mean, this is there's there's so many different angles that are converging on this particular moment. And I don't think they've thought them through. And I feel like the party, again, right, we're playing a very casual game. We don't get to play a bunch. We don't get to play for hours and hours on end. These guys they're not super D&D players who have been playing for years and years and years. I think they're having a lot of fun. They're enjoying it. I think sometimes, and look, I feel good about this. They really just are in the moment. They were in the moment of we're victory over this Champions Valley. Even before that, they were in this thing of like, we're making our stand. We're taking over this joint. Come with us. But I don't think they thought about what does it mean if a bunch of goblins do come with us? What does that mean? What does that look like? So they've been the champion. They don't get the full prize, but they're like, yeah, we did win. If you guys are all what you say you are, follow the strong, come with us. But I don't think they thought through, well, what do we do if they do come with us? Right. I think a lot of their decisions have that quality to it. And some of it, of course, you can't see all ends. I had no idea that Bogwig was going to turn into this major or minor at the moment, but maybe major antagonist because they just decided to keel haul him and just kind of kidnap him for whatever reason. And then he escapes, and then they by hook and by crook, just because of what they were trying to sort of indoctrinate him, they basically told him, oh yeah, we're from this town and this is who we are, so that he could go back to that town and target them. But they did. So it's going to be interesting how they decide to handle it. Now, nothing says The best stuff happens when the party doesn't think things through. Yeah, absolutely. And these guys, they're in the moment, which is awesome. They're in kind of they have these they do have this kind of concept about their characters, which is cool, and they're acting in it, right? The stuff with the flute, they had a plan, didn't really think about things fully. They just kind of went with it, and then realized, oh, maybe this maybe this didn't work out exactly the way we thought of. But yeah, all that stuff is just just give to me. It's great, which is why I feel like what was it? I forget which one of Todd's laws it was, but the party's going to create their own antagonists, and they're certainly creating antagonists, or at least potential antagonists here and there, which is great. So yeah, even though they're going back to town, and a lot of times going back to town, it's kind of just you're sort of wrapping up. You're just kind of wrapping up stuff, and maybe you're just doing some purchases. They've got a lot of stuff to think about when they get back to town. And yeah, having that sort of kind of dynamite with the fuse set. So when they're at some point when they're dealing with just trying to get in the goblins they have with them off the hook, then they're gonna have to deal with that. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm not sure when my game is. I believe it's scheduled for Wednesday. So we'll see when it happens. I'm not sure what they're going to do after this. I mean, this is the thing that's kind of, I don't know, say frustrating, because one of the benefits, this is probably something that maybe GMs should think about, is how long your game sessions are. So mine tend to be short. And the advantage of them being short is that I don't have to plan a super amount, right? So if my sessions, the long ones, when we've really gotten to play a long session, I think maybe 3 hours is maybe the max we've been able to play. Probably even a little bit less than that. Once you get into actual game time, factoring out chit chat and sort of things like that, it's very manageable for me to prepare stuff. And then you end up in situations like this where I don't have to really do any prep other than deciding kind of what happens. And it's all right. The town already exists. The things that are in motion already exist over there. Everything is existing. They're playing in the spaces. I've already done the work I need to do to build it. They're just inside it now, and they're just ping ponging. The bumper cars. I've turned on the juice on the grid overhead, and they're pressing. Everyone's pressing pedals in their bumper cars, and the bumper cars are bouncing around. And all I gotta do is look at whose bumper car is bouncing into whose bumper car, and kind of what's happening. I don't have to do any creation. I don't have to worry about is there a dungeon over there? No, no, I don't. I don't even have to worry. I'm not even really concerned about random encounters or wandering monsters or anything. I might make a roll. They're on the road. It's in the morning. They're in kind of settled country. So there's a very low chance they're going to run into anything. So I don't, it's just, okay, now you're in town. And they could spend the whole session just dealing with the stuff in and around in town with these things. And as a GM, I think we often, I don't even know if it's a trap, but we think about how long can I play, especially when I feel like you're younger, or I guess maybe even age doesn't matter. Really, it's just a matter of how much free time you have. If you're an adult, maybe you think about I want to have a 6-hour session but we're only going to play one weekend a month, or maybe now with all the digital tools, maybe people will do multiple sessions in a week. I don't even know what people's habits are. Certainly, when you're younger, the idea that you might play every week or multiple times a week or on the weekends and play for just a serious long time. Like I was in college, we would play. We're getting there at 9, 10. I don't know, maybe 10 or 9's too early, but 10 or 11, maybe bring some lunch with us. We might dropping lunch. And then we're playing all the way through, past dinner, late night, right? We're playing 8 hours plus on those sessions, which was great. I don't, if unless my family's the rest of my family's out of town, or I do it something kind of special. There's no way I just don't have that kind of time by myself to get that much gaming in. So as a GM, I might say that's what I want. I want to play these super long sessions, but then it puts a lot of pressure on me. I need to prep for that. And if I give the guys 8 hours, yeah, they're going to cover a lot of ground. We're going to get a lot done, but that means we're going to be chewing through a lot of content. If I'm okay with that because of the way I prep or because of the amount I prep, it's all good. But that puts a lot of pressure on me. If I don't have a plan for all that time, then I'm in trouble. But I don't hear GMs or I don't see a lot of discussions about that's something to think about as far as picking out the right amount of time. Maybe it would be good for a lot of GMs if you said, instead of trying to play for 4 hours, play for 2. play for 2 hours. You can do something else for another 2 hours. If you feel like, well, I've got 4 hours, my friends are going to get here at 7 p.m. and we're going to sign off at 11. So I got 4 hours. And maybe, hey, well, let's play a board game or let's do something else for 2 hours. And then let's game for 2 hours. Or you could have your little session things. I guess I'm sure it seems like if you got 4 hours, why would you shorten it? But at the same time, I can say that playing the way I play is just very easy for me to GM. It's kind of, I don't have a lot of stress. I don't really feel any stress over it because I've got I would actually like to play longer. On average, I'd like to be around that 3-hour mark, I think, if I I had my druthers, but I'm in a very comfortable time or, a duration that allows me to, do all my family stuff and have my own free time. I have time to do all kinds of other stuff and then not feel like I'm always behind the 8 ball prepping, which when I had run a game a while ago, I was running more like 4 to 6 hour sessions. I would kind of feel like, oh gosh, I've got too much work, got stuff going on. And I just felt like, I was getting kind of stressed out about the amount of work I felt like I needed to put in. Whereas for this, it's easy for me. I can get through a couple of hours at this kind of situation, just no problem, because so much of it is just at this point, the players, bouncing off their own stuff. Right. So it's something to think about, and that maybe doesn't get thought about enough is don't just, everyone thinks about pick the prep amount you need to get where you are, but you can also pick your duration. No reason, look, just because you got 4 hours doesn't mean you have to grind your game for 4 hours. Play for 3 hours, play for 2 hours, mix it up. Have a fun icebreaker, kind of play a party game or play something else to kind of get people just relaxed and into it, and then play your game, and then you could have another kind of party game afterwards, and do that for your sessions, and you might find that it just frees you up. Let's see. Brian Smith says, a really juicy complication would be if the town lets the goblin non-combatants in, but not the warrior goblin males. I mean, it could be. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. A lot of it's going to come down to how does the party sell these goblins to the town? If they bring the goblins in chains, the town will probably let them in, but it'll be understood that they're supposed to be leading the goblins to basically hand them over to the Viscount as kind of another prize, much like they did with that wolfling body. It's like, look, this is what we did. We have brought you tribute, my lord, right? Here are these goblins. If they just bring them in and like, yeah, we're just taking them home, they're going to work for us, it's going to be a much harder sell. I'm open to it if they could come up with some reasoning that sounds plausible. Maybe they could, but I mean, especially, it's hard. It's complicated because they're in kind of iffy standing, right? So there's that too. If they were beloved by everybody, basically if we had like a reputation meter and theirs was sitting at 100% and they brought in some goblins, people will give them kind of benefit of the doubt, but they're maybe at 50-ish%. So people are, they're sort of like, well, you did something nice lately, but before that, we thought you guys were kind of jerks. And now you're bringing around goblins into our midst. Seems like maybe you're wavering. Maybe you're starting to go towards jerky. So they're going to really need to, whatever their reasoning is, and I'm assuming they're bringing them to the gate, right? They could try to, they could have a lot of fun with. Are we going to try to disguise them? Or are we going to try to, can we get a farmer? Can we see someone on the road with, the old wagon that's full of hay? I mean, it's kind of early spring, so there doesn't really there now. But could we hitch a ride on a wagon and put them under some blankets, get them in that way? I don't think they have any spells or abilities to make the goblins, invisible or something like that. But I don't know, something like that, or they're going to be. Well, we're going to go in and then at nightfall, we'll try to lower some ropes from the walls and get them in or around the side or something. They have options, right? I just don't know what it is. I'm assuming they're just going to go right up to the gate, but they might not. I mean, I don't really have a reason for that assumption, just simply that's kind of the easiest thing to do. And it's the most straightforward thing to do. And they tend to be straightforward, but I'm all open if they've got some kind of shenanigans or things that they can do to try to get around here. Now, another thing says in college, I went to GM for 42 hours within 48 hours. Time well spent. Whew, that's a lot of hours. But yeah, we used to do stuff like that, right? Oh, we're going to play Saturday, and then we're going to come right back and do the same thing on Sunday. I think maybe 16 or 18 hours in a given. I don't know if I would say 20. Probably like, yeah. Like I think I probably did like 24 hours and 48, like just over 2 days, basically 12-hour days, and it was awesome. It was awesome. Ate, pizza and sub sandwiches and just tons of chips and Jolt Cola, and we could do it. But I mean, I don't even know if I could do it now, even if my family was all gone for a weekend. I'd be up for trying it, but I'd also be like, okay, let's get our 5-hour energy drinks just primed and ready, and we'll take some naps. Maybe we'll do something. Brian Smith says, definitely shorter focus sessions are a benefit. Yeah, I think so. That's a good, concise way of saying it. Another says, two goblins in a trench coat. Yep. Terrence with the tasty goblin veal. Ooh. Yeah, that's like, I don't know why it's made me think of it, but my family, we've been playing, what's it called? Animal Crossing. And we've unlocked most of the stuff. We don't have the expansion yet. We've unlocked most of the stuff in the base game. And one of the things you get is a coffee shop that's in the museum. And this guy, this bird, I forget his name, bird that runs the coffee shop. And I heard that if you get coffee every day, he'll unlock stuff, or he'll give you stuff. So I started doing one of my things. Okay, I'll log in and I'm going to go and I'll get my coffee, get my virtual coffee in the morning. And then he started offering me every once in a while pigeon milk with my coffee. My wife was like, ew, pigeon milk. But, I don't know why something is the goblin veal made me think of pigeon milk. But yeah, pigeon milk and Animal Crossing. We've got goblin veal. Gross, but I guess if they want to sell it. There you go. The Brian Smith says, traveling Groucho Marx disguise merchant, absolutely, or cardboard box merchant. Yep. Exactly. Look, if they go into the sort of like tomfoolery, it could be a lot of fun. They don't have a lot of tools, but maybe one of them could try to go in town and then there's a lot of options. The only thing with a lot of the options is that, again, they just don't tend to game plan stuff too much. So it's gonna really be a lot of what are they thinking about in that moment. And something that for Aiden, this is one of those things that, ideally, I think I've mentioned before that the party, the players, they're not particularly efficient, which I don't care about, right? Efficiency. And one of the things that came up in that battle with the champions is they weren't on the same page as characters and players with what they were going to do, but they were giving in the meta sense, which I really appreciate, of letting these characters the latitude of like, this is what my character feels like, this is where I'm going, I'm going to do it, and you're going to deal with the consequences of that, I'm going to deal with the consequences of your decision, whatever, and we'll go it, and nobody having hard feelings. Because in a lot of groups, and I think this is especially true, I think it's even probably more true of experienced groups over inexperienced ones, is when someone makes that poor decision, you almost, I've been there, you're like biting your teeth, like, this is so bad, but I'm like, you especially with someone new, I can see, with my daughter. When my daughter playing Animal Crossing, when my wife and I, we have to kind of walk away because she starts doing stuff. We just want to tell her, hey, there's so much easier way to do that, or should you do this instead, or whatever. We're like, nope, we're not gonna. She's only 7, right? So hey, but we got to turn away because it's hard not to just say something when you see it happening. I think with experienced groups, new person comes in, or maybe not even a new person, somebody, and they're doing something, you just want to jump on them and say, no, this is, we want to win as soon as possible. This is what the best move is. This. And they've been really good about, look, my guy wants to try to get terms, even though the other one's like, we don't want to get terms, right? They didn't get into an argument or say like, can I stop him or do anything? They're like, okay, you're going to do that, and we will react to it as we would if it was just an NPC doing it, right? We're just going to react to it in the moment, in our characters, do whatever. And that's great. But it means that when they come to these kind of things, I could see them being pulled into different directions, of one of them wanting to go into town and then someone else wanting to do something, and they may or may not. Sometimes they're able to come together and then get that kind of, okay, we need an organized plan, we're going to do that. And sometimes the players decide like, okay, my guy's just going to go do, I can see the one guy going, I'm just going to go talk to the guards. And the other guy's going to be like, no, wait, let's figure out a story first. And that person's gone. And then they'll have to decide whether they're going to run over there and kind of just end up doing that, talking to the guards, or figuring something else out, or whatever. So it's I really appreciate from just a meta mentality of like, hey, we're going to play this game, and we're going to tell these crazy complicated stories, this kind of history. It's going to be messy, it's going to be full of false starts and everything. And if you decide your character's going to do that, then I'm just going to live with it and deal with it, and not get caught up in, we must do the best thing at all times. But it does mean that sometimes they lack the benefit of that. Okay, let's figure things out. So it doesn't really bother me much. it just makes things kind of hilarious for me because it's kind of fun when people just kind of go off and don't. I'm probably as a player, I'm probably guilty of. I'll try to game plan it out. Okay, here, this is what let's really take that timeout and think about what we should do. They don't take a lot of those timeouts. I think sometimes I will grant them. If I see that they're, I'm like, okay, why don't you guys take a timeout and think about, I'll get a drink or go to the bathroom or put my daughter to bed or something like that. But they don't have that instinct or the thing themselves to say, okay, let's call a timeout and let's figure out what we should do. They just kind of go. So any plan that's going to have a lot of coordination might not have. I don't know if I'd bet money on it just because that's something that they lack some part of the time, for lack of a better word. Let's see. The first idea usually ain't the best one. That's true. And yeah, we could have 5 simultaneous stories. I mean, I could absolutely see a situation where one of them goes to talk to the guards. Another one starts trying to grab blankets or something, or tries to run in to get blankets. Like, can I run in, get to the store, buy blankets or clothes or something and do it and try to do the goblins in a trench coat, while the other one's like, I try to find somewhere to hide the goblins. I could totally see them being in this whole mix of all these different things, so that the one guy comes back with the guards to show them that the goblins are totally docile and peaceful, and then the goblins are gone. And instead we've got like 4 Jawa looking things maybe, or maybe they're just absolutely gone. And the other one comes back with these blankets and the guards are there, but the goblins are gone. I mean, I have a feeling, fingers crossed, because this is the kind of comedy and games I love. I'm not a huge fan of I don't want to call it overt comedy, but when you're trying to be funny, you're really, you're trying to create a comedic moment. I don't try to create comedic moments if they're there. Like, this seems like has great potential to be one. I'll try to play it up as much as I can. Just like with the goblins at the door. That was just kind of a funny moment. But it came out of something that was really happening. I wasn't trying to create a comedy moment. I think in gaming, I tend to like to play the comedy when it comes, but not play for comedy. Like, oh, this is a great funny moment. Yeah, let's have it up, but not try to do it. Anyway, in this case, I feel like there's going to be a lot of great natural, just emergent comedy. We have emergent storytelling. We have emergent comedy. Absolutely. Cue the Benny Hill music. Absolutely. There could definitely be some Benny Hill going on. And who knows? Maybe they'll surprise me. They have that players only. I think I mentioned this on Discord. I set them up with a channel that's just for them. And I don't go in there. I don't look at it. I have it muted, so I don't know if they're talking in there. Sometimes they use it, I think. Sometimes they don't. They might surprise me, and they may have used it and come up with something. I don't know. This is where I think that I'm fine, because I know there's people will go back and forth on, or people will talk about how much the GM should know about the player's plans. I don't think the players should be trying to trick the GM in terms of, like, on a meta level, like trying to say like, oh, we're going to do this, but then we're really going to do something else. That way I'm like, I think that's kind of bad form. At the same time, I don't feel as a GM I need to know everything, and I'm happy not to know, because I like that sense of discovery, that sense of surprise. I think the only time I would want to know is if the party was like, okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to abandon these goblins by the side of the road and just run eastward. I might want to know that, because then it helps me kind of prep stuff, because I'm assuming, and I feel like what I know now, I have a 99.9% knowledge of where they're going and what they're doing. If that was going to change to something totally different, yeah, I'd like to know that. But other than that, I'm happy not knowing the particulars of their plan, because I do like that discovery. I do like that mystery. Let's see. Brian Smith says, a situation like this where anything could happen, do you focus on the main guard NPC to prep something, or so you have something that can react to their shenanigans in a myriad of ways? I don't think I need to. I probably don't need to think about the NPC of the whatever the guard is. I might do something like draw one of those I don't know if you saw the video I did. I had to have these personality cards, and you can kind of flip them and draw them. So you get stuff like, oh, this person, I don't know, they're an energetic leader, or they're a lethargic thinker, something like that. And if I want to just kind of get a sense of what their personality is, I don't feel like I need to prep that too much. I know that there is a guy there, and I know, you know, I kind of know I think the one thing is like I don't do a ton of formal prep, but I do a lot of informal prep, which I think I've mentioned before, right? But the game occupies a certain amount of my mind space leading up to the game. So even though I don't have reams and reams of like story manuals, I've been thinking about, okay, they're going to get there. There's going to be these guards there. The guards, you know, are like this, and the kind of okay, that structure of the town is like X and Y. But yeah, for something like that, I might say, well, I just want to get kind of idea of who this guy is. Because one trap, and I think I've talked about this before too. I feel like at this point, I've probably done, I probably could say about almost everything. I've probably mentioned this before in some video or another, but I'm conscious of the fact that so many NPCs just end up being gruff. It just seems to be the default, de facto personality for your NPC. They're gruff, they're mean. What do you want, stranger? Kind of thing. Just all angry and all. You know, so I'm cognizant of that. I'm sure it's happened to me in my own games where everyone just turns out gruff. I remember being very frustrated with it as a player, where you walk in somewhere and you're not, you know, it's not even like you're the new level 0, level 1 cat, but like everybody, you might be level 2, level 3, whatever it is, and everybody just is mean and just condescending, better than you, or they think they are, and just talking down to you and threatening you. You know, like the shopkeeper is, you know, like rather I spit on you than serve you, and the tavern keeper is just threatening you as soon as you like everyone's just kind of mean and treating you like you're nothing. And I'm very cognizant that can end up being, for whatever reason, I don't know why it is, but just something that occurs to GMs a lot. That first blush response can just be like everyone's just kind of mean, and doesn't trust you. You got to earn all their trust, earn all their respect. So doing something like flipping cards and getting those personalities, doing things just helps kind of shake things up. Because what if you get like the leader who's actually kind of a coward? Maybe the guy who's on guard duty is not even a full-time guard. I mean, are they any even full-time guards really, right? They might be. This is when they're doing their amount of service and they're really a cobbler or something. So they got a little bit of flex, but then maybe you push them and they fold like a cheap deck chair because this is not they're not strong really. They're just kind of trying to puff their chest out and pretend to be strong for a minute. So, you know, flipping those cards, or, I mean, there are tons of online things. You can roll dice, virtual or real, and consult stuff, but the cards are kind of cool because they're kind of visual and they're easy to have on the table. Do something like that. Brian Smith says they're going to be trying to cajole, convince, bribe, harass a gate guard, I'm guessing. That's my thought. I don't think they're going to go so far as to harass, though they might. They don't seem to be the harassing types. Cajoling, convincing, bribery, absolutely. And they've got coin. They've got coin in hand because they have a bunch of coin in town, and people pretty much know they've got wealth. And they just have a sack full of a fairly sizable pouch. I guess maybe sack's too large a word, but a pouch, good sized pouch full of coin that they liberated off of the ogre champion. So they got money. They got money. The deck. So this deck, Brian, is actually from, I think I actually got it off Amazon. It's actually not a role-playing game deck. It's like more of like a psychology. Whoops. Hold on a minute. Let me go back here. Let me do it in another window so not to. It's actually a psychology deck. Let me see if I can. It might actually be easier to find my video than to. Hold on a second. I've got the link. No, let's go to YouTube. Let's go to the tubes of Ubes. Oh, okay. Sorry here. This is a riveting stream at the moment. All right, let me go to my channel. I just got to remember what I called it. I think I did it. Did I do it live or did I do it? Maybe search. Okay, let's see here. Here we go. Not that long. All right, I'll just grab the link and I'll post it in. And then the link should have. Wow, when did I post this thing? Oh my gosh. Time just flying. This is like 7 months old now. This is from May of 2021. All right. I'm doing this just dirty. If you go in there, even if you don't want to watch the video, which hey, give it a watch if you'd like, and give it a thumbs up if you'd like. But if you just want to check out the link to the cards, the card link is in the description. They're called Archetype Cards by Carolyn Miss. Hold on, actually, I'm right there. I'll just pull out the link too. The video is still solid. I'm not suggesting not to go check out the video if you don't want to, but there are the cards. So these cards are actually not. They are not a role-playing game. They're not based on any kind of system. They're more about. I think they're more about for writers. You need to come up with a character. And some of them, some sources of these are kind of those new agey kind of things, like the Tao of this and the cards of that. Let's tell you your personality type and your star sign and your moon sign and your stone sign. And I'm not, I don't want to, I don't want to belittle such things. I'm not a huge believer in them. Who knows if they're true or not? But not my jam, so to speak. But some of them actually provide some good tools, just pull out of them. And that's one of them. You get these good ones. There's a whole bunch of them. I don't know where they are. Otherwise, they're not quite in desk reach. So I could pull them out. What's this card stone sign? Right, exactly. Yeah. So check it out. You can check out the video if you want to see kind of how I'm doing it. And you can do a lot of interesting things if you want to do kind of tarot-like readings with sort of a good thing and a bad thing. You can do kind of a cross reading. You got to use them for all kinds of stuff. They're pretty simple archetypes, pretty easy to figure out. They're not esoteric. So, something like that you can use is a good one. But that's it. So that's going to be my session. I want to say tomorrow night. Who knows? No one has said yet. We tend to just kind of reschedule with fairly short notice. I mean, it's only 4 of us, including me. So, and we're all playing remotely. So sometimes this stuff will come up and they'll say, hey, can we change it to this night? Can we change it to that night? Whatever. But presumably it should be tomorrow night if all is well with everyone. Right, so it says, making simple D4 roll tables to generate a random NPC in my homebrew villages. Oh, excellent. That's a good one. It's a good idea also. I think I've been planning a video on some stuff with this. And one thing that I would recommend is do a bunch of those and name them. And then you can have those people show up in different places or different areas in that locality, which I think can help with making your village feel dynamic. And so I'm going to do, I don't want to tread too much. Something I'm going to do another video on, but the idea was, let's say you create a roster of say 12 villagers and you got maybe a couple of hunters, a couple of foragers or mushroom gatherers or trufflers or whatever, a couple of, what are they called? People who go get firewood, a couple of people who are just farmers, right? So then you have this roster. Then when you are running, say you're wandering checks and you can have a spot that's basically a human or a local or a villager, you can roll on those tables or roll through that roster you have, pick one. So if you get hunter if you have in your wandering monster table, say hunter or person, instead of then creating a random person on the fly, you pick one of the hunters or foragers, whoever else might be out there. You could roll the dice. What this does is it allows those characters to kind of, it's going to feel like they're moving around the environment, right? The farmer's not always on the farm. The hunter's not always in the hunter's shed. Sometimes they're out in the woods. Sometimes you see them. You can have a lot of fun with that when you're building things up. Okay, so the party's at night and they're in kind of a weird spot and they run into the hunter. What's the hunter doing out there at night? Could be innocent. Might not be so innocent. You can, in that moment, you can think about, well, is that hunter got some? Let's say the party's out to try to find these cultists who are at a hidden shrine and they run into the hunter. Is the hunter also looking for the cultists for some reason? Is the hunter a cultist? Is the hunter something else, right? You can have a lot of fun with that. Then if something happens to that person, then it's going to resonate with the party more. If you want to have an event that happens while they're away, oh, somebody was killed by an owlbear. You pull somebody off that roster and, oh, the hunter was killed by an owlbear. then that's going to be more meaningful. And then as they're moving around, they'll kind of, they'll be built up. If there's a market town, maybe the farmer, and you end up seeing them in the larger town. Maybe they're just in the village, but then you see them in the larger town because they're there selling their wares, or they're there, could be for nefarious reasons. Maybe they're looking for the party. Could be a good way to drop a plot hook in there. But you start to develop these different individuals that can show up. It's going to give your party things to latch onto. They're going to want to follow. They're going to follow these people as these names are recurring. It's going to build. You're going to be building this community around them. They're going to know if things happen to them, it's going to mean more because it's a farmer they may have interacted with, or a hunter, or whomever they have interacted with before. Maybe that hunter owes them something. Maybe they owe the hunter some favor because the hunter gave them some information. Whatever it is, you're building this kind of web of things that they can keep coming around, which I think can be, especially when your party's kind of staying put in the same area for a while, it can be very useful, and it can make your world feel kind of dynamic and everything like that. All that good stuff. Brian Smith says, yeah, I'm kind of realizing I should roll my tables ahead of time so there are notable individuals. Also have NPCs unique to the area, or can roll a d4 to place an NPC if needed. Yeah, I think, and part of what the video I'm going to be doing is on the different kind of abstraction levels of sort of, I guess, wilderness or kind of overworld gaming. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I feel like there are different levels. So that you have, and this will be fairly repeated in some way on this other video when I get around to being able to finish it. But basically you have, I'm calling at the moment your investigation level. That's your 10-foot, 5-foot squares, right? You're down, you're in it. You're interested in the details of specific rooms, things within specific rooms, things within 10 by 10 foot areas. Obviously, when you're in dungeons, that's what you tend to be in. Maybe if you're in a house or something else, some other structure that's kind of, okay, this is what we're interested in. Then you come up a level, and this is the name I'm calling it right now, is that your adventure level. So I've heard the term sub-hex. You're within one, or maybe you're in 2 6-mile hexes, but that's kind of where you are. You're not interested in moving miles and miles at a time. Maybe you're interested in moving a mile or two. I think of something like Keep on the Borderlands is basically all the stuff in Keep on the Borderlands feels, if I'm remembering correctly, fits well within 1 6-mile hex. It is not that far. The Caves of Chaos are not that far away from the keep. And then you have other points of interest that are also, or sort of individuals, NPCs and things that are all kind of just in there. And now you're talking in tens or hundreds of feet, yards, maybe fractions of a mile, maybe a couple of miles. But that's kind of your zoomed in sort of level for that. In that adventuring area, if you're going to be in there, which kind of my party's been in for a long time, is and depending on how you structure your hexes, you could call it 1 to 2 to, depending on where, I think I could fit it in maybe 2 or 3 hexes, depending on how I stuck the hexes. If I put stuff and really just tried to maximize space, maybe it would be 2, maybe a third one would creep in there. But in any case, when your party's kind of in that area, then I think it's good to have that roster of people you can call on. Now, once they zoom up to that hex level where they're moving multiple hexes, when they're really, I think I'm calling it the expedition level. You're moving miles and miles. That's you're moving days. Travel is kind of your main thing, and you're trying to put miles behind you. Having that roster is less important until they settle again, because they're covering a lot of ground. They're covering each hex, even if 6-mile hex, each hex over 30 square miles. So they're blowing through a few hexes in a day. They're not going to really run into recurring people unless it's significant. You might have one person, but if you run into one person in one kind of morning hex worth of ground, and then you're in the afternoon, evening, and you cover another hex full of ground, you run into the same person, either they're following you, or that they're like, what are you doing, right? Of course, it's on a road or something like that. You can say, oh, this is a merchant, whatever. But for the most part, you're dealing with new sets of people, and I'm not really worried at that level. I don't want to really worry about creating a whole roster for each hex they go through, because they're probably going to be going 8 hexes when they're done, or whatever. When they find that thing they're looking for, whatever it is, and then they kind of settle into, okay, now we're going to be spending time in this area. We've traveled from whatever to the keep, and now, okay, we're here at kind of the keep, and this is where we're planting our permanent or temporary base of operations. Then building up that roster will make that area feel alive. And then maybe you could phase it out as they get out. Because, yeah, maybe a hunter or forger might end up going 1 hex further on, some miles, but, you know, they're doing day work, right? So maybe the hunter stays out for a couple of days at a time. Maybe not. Maybe they have wherever their shack is, they have some radius, and they're going to be going back and forth to that shack. So they're going to kind of stay there. Certainly, I think a forager probably not staying out all night. So they really are going to be usually within a hex. Depending on where they are in the hex, maybe they'll bounce into the next hex and then back, but they're all going to be kind of centered in there. So you can kind of think about, well, what is my party doing? What I need? Have they settled on the hex where they're going to be operating for some period of time? Then, yeah, create that roster, create points of interest, create those minor, minor sort of I don't know, points of, I had another word for it. Now I'm thinking of like landmarks and things like that. If they're just moving through, then I'm just going to keep to the major stuff. And so that will sort of what they're doing and kind of what level of abstraction I'm at is going to determine kind of what prep I feel like I need to make. So that's just a preview, let's say, of this other video. Right, so it makes total sense. Sounds like a future vid will be good. Well, I hope so. Well, I think I'm done with this one. So thanks everyone for hanging out. Sorry about the technical difficulties at the front, but I'm glad we got that sorted and I was able to talk about it. Any last questions in the chat? And on your way out, if you give it a thumbs up for the stream, that would be epic. And if you found yourself in here not subscribed, if you'd like to subscribe, helps me out. You just get informed when I do stuff, and I don't try to bother people too much. I just post streams, post videos, that sort of thing. I'm doing a lot. I'm trying to use the forums for scheduling and that stuff. I definitely will always post stuff in the community channel on YouTube, but also the forums where I'm going to be getting putting a lot of the detailed stuff and hopefully having great conversations over there. So if you check out the forums, if you'd like to be involved with that, and I'm trying to kind of get it off the ground. It's new, so it's kind of bare bones. So the more people I can get in there using it will just kind of help make it seem more alive, but we'll taking it slow, taking it easy. What is my stone sign? I think the closest thing I could be able to think to that answer is I think the either April stone is either diamond or sapphire. I can't remember. I think it's one of those two. Well, what are we doing? Let's see. Month stone signs. Is that right? Month stones, birthstones. Is that right? Is that what it is? Let's see. January, February. I'm in April. I'm diamond. Okay, sapphire. I have a bunch of family birthdays are in September. That's why I thought of it. I am in April. I am diamond. Diamond is forever. Brian Smith, what is your birthstone? You could have some fun with that too. You could definitely take this and put in some different. What would be really interesting? Here's an idea. It'd be very cool to take something like this and then integrate it with kind of magic stones or either on their own or say as part of weapons like magic swords and magic, all kinds of stuff. Like when the characters were born, what kind of stones they use, which stones align more with them. And you could really set up some relationships of like, oh, this is aquamarine, but you're ruby, so we just don't get along, kind of like fire and ice. Oh, Terrence is Peridot. The lamest stone. No, not the lamest stone. Peridots are cool. There's a new nice. Garnet. Yeah, garnet. It does seem kind of, though, tourmaline or was that? Yeah, tourmaline. That's got a nice, or I don't know, whichever one's that reddish color for October looks really nice too. But yeah, garnet definitely looks bloody. Ruby, maybe a little bit too bright red, at least in this image. Cool. I don't know if anyone's in New York City or they're coming. The American Museum of Natural History just opened, not just, but fairly recently. They redid their minerals exhibit or exhibition area, or their minerals, I guess, exhibit. Wherever they have all their mineral stuff, and it's really cool. It's really awesome. Put that on your list if you're coming to New York City to go check out the Museum of Natural History, which you should be doing anyway, especially if you've not seen it before. But even if you have seen it before, their new minerals room or whatever is pretty epic. Pretty epic. Magic systems, Brian Smith's a magic system on stones would be dope. Yeah, it just occurred to me. You could have a lot of fun with different months, different stones they're related to, what kind of magic and what kind of effects are on those stones. You could easily come up with your own if you wanted to be more fantastical than just kind of our minerals. But even with those, be cool. Might have to think about it. Take some doing, but it could be cool. All right, folks. I got to head out. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you're watching or listening to this. Remember to thumbs up on your way out if you don't mind. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Again, if you don't mind. I will see you tomorrow with the first of my 2 interviews this week, as Carl Rodriguez is going to sell me on Savage Worlds. Oh, and look, if one of you guys feels like you have a system or a mechanic, it doesn't have to be a full system, mechanic, something that you feel like is criminally underappreciated in tabletop role-playing games, and you feel like you want to and you're able to, come on and get in the hot seat and talk to me about it. Let me know. Maybe we can work some out. This will be the second one. I'd love to. This is the last one I have scheduled, but I'm looking for more folks to come in and talk about the games that are meaningful to them. So let me know, or if you know somebody, so drop them a line, drop me a line. Let's make it happen. All right, folks. Cheers.